The universe had not heard a sound like it in over 10,000 years, floating in the empty cold beyond the stars. A single signal pulsed, quiet at first, then louder until its whisper became a scream. It echoed through dead satellites, across ruined battlefields, and into the ears of machines that hadn't moved since the first civilizations fell. The message wasn't complex. It was broken, like static inside a storm. But one thing was clear. Someone, or something, was calling for help. It's not just help. Salvation. The signal came from a forgotten part of the galaxy near the collapsed star cluster known as the Black Cradle. Most races avoided it. They said no ships returned. The darkness there wasn't normal. It was alive. But curiosity was a disease that spread fast in explorers, and the salvage crew of the Nomad's Echo couldn't resist. They tracked the signal to its source, a shattered moon orbiting a dead sun, and landed. There was no structure, no beacon, not even a power source, just rocks and dust. But deep under the surface, in a crack sealed by age, they found a black metal cube, warm to the touch and humming softly. It had no markings, no interface, no lights. But the moment they touched it, the signal stopped. Then one of the crew, a technician named Yahan, started speaking in a voice that wasn't his. He whispered words in a language no one recognized. His eyes rolled back. His fingers scratched shapes into the floor. When they pulled him away, he screamed one word over and over: humanity. That was the last thing ever transmitted from the Nomad's Echo before it went silent. When a recovery team arrived 3 days later, the ship was still intact. Systems worked. Engines were online. But the crew was missing, every single one of them. Not dead, not rotting, just gone. Only the cube remained, sitting quietly on the captain's chair. News spread fast across the galaxy. Not many remembered the word humanity. It hadn't been spoken aloud in over 500 years. It's not since the humans were cast out, their home system sealed, their name erased from databases. By galactic law. Too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous, the galaxy had decided. Deathworlders do not belong. And so Earth was forgotten. But now, the silence was broken. The Galactic High Command called an emergency council. The cube was brought into the Great Hall, guarded by 6 elite security drones and 6 mind stabilizers. The moment it was activated, the lights dimmed and the signal played again, this time through every communication channel, every frequency, every species language. We are falling. The stars are breaking. The chain of suns is dying. Only they can stop it. Find them. Humanity. Panic broke out. One Vrex speaker screamed that it was a trick. A car ambassador tried to destroy the cube and was knocked unconscious by a feedback pulse. The Arasi elders whispered in fear, remembering old stories of fire, blood, and war stories where humans weren't just soldiers. They were storms then. The real terror began. Across the galaxy. Ancient constructs that had never moved, giant machines orbiting dead planets. Floating mine cores buried in ice moons began to activate. Some hummed, others simply turned. Not toward danger. Not toward home, but toward a single star system. Sol, Earth's sun. The message was clear. The ancient machines, older than time, were pointing toward the forgotten world of the Deathworlders. The fear was no longer about the signal. It was about what would happen next. On a lonely science outpost near the edge of known space, a researcher named Kale watched the chaos unfold from a distance. He had always been curious about the old stories about Earth, about humans. Read forbidden texts, seen ancient hollows of humans laughing, crying, destroying, and rebuilding. To him, they were not monsters. They were wild, pure, powerful, real. Now they were being called again. Kale knew what was happening wasn't a mistake. The universe wasn't asking for help from gods or kings. It was calling its last hope. It's the ones who had been thrown away, feared, and forgotten. And that meant only one thing. The enemy wasn't just coming. The end was far across the galaxy. Behind layers of planetary shields and forgotten warnings, the signal finally reached the outer edge of Earth's dark zone. A place wrapped in silence, hidden from every known scanning technology. But the moment the message touched the edge of that black curtain, the curtain moved, slowly. Like an eye-opening after a long sleep. Satellites. Long thought dead came online. Orbital cannons rotated. A signal a completely different one launched. Back through the void. No words, just coordinates. And a symbol. A. Burning skulls surrounded by stars, the Deathworlders had heard the call. And this time, they would answer it on their terms. Let the galaxy remember what it is, and forgotten. Let them remember why humans were exiled. Let them remember why Earth was. Call the Death World. And let them pray it wasn't too late. For more than 500 years, the Sol system had been silent. No ship came close. No signal passed through. It had become a dead zone, a forbidden place, wrapped in dark satellites and rumor. The official record said Earth was exiled, cut off after the last sanctioned war, locked away behind a firewall of automated weapons and energy barriers. No one knew exactly what happened after the humans were sealed in, and no one dared to find out until now, when the signal, asking for salvation, spread across the galaxy. The ancient machine's precursor relays older than stars had all turned towards Sol, the chain of suns. The galactic gravity network that kept everything in balance was collapsing. Systems were vanishing into black holes. Reality itself was becoming unstable. And now, all signs pointed back to the one species no one wanted to remember. Humanity, so the galaxy had a decision to make. They could let the signal die, ignore it, pretend humans never existed. Or, they could open the door that had been locked for half a millennium and pray that the monsters inside would still care enough to help. The vote in the Galactic High Council was close. Many species still feared Earth. The Vrex representative hissed that awakening the Deathworlders was inviting extinction. The Car delegation growled that humans were feral gods, too wild to trust. The Irasi, more thoughtful, whispered, "What others feared to say, if they come back, they may not save us, they may judge us." In the end, desperation won. The vote passed. A ship was sent. The Azure Light was a diplomatic vessel, but it carried weapons hidden in its bones. Its crew to Irasi linguists, one Vrex warborn, and a car pilot knew they were flying into history, or death. No one had entered the Sol system and returned. No one even knew if the humans still lived. Maybe they had destroyed themselves. As many believed, as the ship approached the outer defense ring, sensors went dark. Communication was scrambled. Shields flickered, and then the sky opened. Not in violence, but with permission. A passage appeared. A tunnel of energy shaped perfectly for the Azure Light, glowing red and gold. No warnings, no threats. Just a clear path inward. They entered. What they saw beyond shattered everything they thought they knew. Earth is alive. Not just alive, thriving. The cities had evolved into towering structures of metal and light, floating in high orbit. Massive orbital rings spun around the planet, covered in weapons, farms, and moving shields. Drones buzzed like bees. Warships the size of moons floated quietly in low orbit, their surfaces black as the void, their engines sleeping, and behind them, Earth turned calmly blue, green, and full of fire. But the real shock was the voice. It came through the ship's speakers before they could even hail the planet. "You are entering Earth's sovereign space. You are not welcome. Turn back or prepare for judgment." It was not robotic. It was human. The pilot opened a response channel. "This is the Azure Light from the Galactic High Council. We seek peaceful contact. We come with respect." There was a pause, then came a different voice. This one was cold and curious. "Peace. After 500 years of exile, respect. After you left us to die, tell me, what makes you think humanity owes you anything?" The crew was silent. Then the Irasi diplomat stepped forward, trembling but calm. "The chain of suns is dying. Whole systems are falling. The galaxy is collapsing. The signal we found, it named your people. Only Deathworlders can survive what's coming. Only you can save us. Silence. Then, laughter, but not cruel. The voice spoke again, slower this time. Now you remember us. Not when we begged for aid during the burning. Not when you cast us out. Now in your darkest hour, you call to the wolves. Very well. Come. Passage shifted. Ship was drawn in not by force, but by gravity shaped like will. They landed on Earth's upper orbital ring, guided by unseen systems. Guards in dark armor met them, not robots, but people, tall, silent faces hidden behind expressionless masks. One of them handed the crew a message chip. The diplomat inserted it into her reader. A hologram appeared, Earth's seal glowing bright red. Then a woman's voice began to speak, calm, measured, controlled. I am General Rika Ward, Commander. Of the Black Fleet, you call us now because you are dying. You fear what is coming. Remember that we were born in fire? You exiled us for our strength. Now you want that strength again. You ask if we will save you? We answer, no. The crew gasped, but the message continued. We will not save a galaxy that fears us. We will not bleed for those who shunned us. We will do something worse. We will return, and you will watch, and you will learn what real survival looks like. Back on the azure light, as the ship turned to leave Earth orbit, the pilot whispered to the crew, they aren't just alive, they've evolved. The wrecked soldier nodded slowly. They didn't become gods. They became something scarier. The ship left soul space under escort, silent and shaken. But as it moved away, sensors picked up something behind Earth's moon. Dozens of ships, black, sharp, old and new, rising from hidden dry docks. Engines roaring quietly, waking up the black. Fleet was moving, and Earth wasn't just coming to help it. Was coming to lead? Let the galaxy tremble, because in their darkest hour, the Deathworlders had answered the call. The stars were broken. That was the first truth Captain Alavas learned as she stared out of the Goliath's heart, humanity's flagship, now gliding at the edge of a dying sun. She had seen many stars in her life, watched them rise, watched them die, fought battles in their light, but this one was different. It pulsed like a heartbeat, slow, unsteady, sick. This was Anchor 6, one of the legendary chain of suns, ancient megastars connected by precursor technology, each one stabilizing entire regions of space. It should have burned for another billion years. But now its surface, boiled in strange patterns, as if something beneath it was twisting reality, and above it hung silence. The system's homeworld, Rekish Prime, was gone. Not destroyed, not burned, just missing. The planet's orbit was empty, its moon drifting alone like a forgotten child. Satellites floated dead in space, no bodies, no debris, no transmissions, a ghost system. A mystery, and the only sign of life or something like it was the signal repeating from the edge of the broken sun. Anchor failing, core collapse, emergency override denied, recursive pattern detected, source unknown, anchor failing. Anchor failing. Anchor. Inside the war room of the Goliath's heart, General Rika Ward stood at the center of a glowing 3D model of the system. Around her, commanders and AI tacticians studied patterns, fluctuations, energy spikes searching for cause, or at least warning. Chain integrity is collapsing, the AI Helix 9 reported. If Anchor 6 fails, sectors Zeta through Omicron will experience gravitational fracture. Civilizations in 6 systems will be lost within 30 days. And the planet? Rika asked. Where is Rika's prime? We don't know, Ayla answered. But something took it, not destroyed, not consumed. Taken a reconnaissance. Squad launched from the fleet's small stealth ships known as Crows. Fast, silent, built to slip past sensor ghosts. Their goal? Approach the sun, find the source of the recursive signal, retrieve any tech or data hidden in the storm. The mission was meant to be simple. It wasn't. The moment the first crow crossed into the inner orbit, its systems blinked. Then, it vanished. No explosion, no warning, just gone. The second ship sent back one image before it too disappeared. A black tendril, like smoke made solid, wrapping around space itself. The AI processed the image. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't matter. It was compressed memory, a digital thought dense, tangled, hostile, Captain Hillix-9 said. We are dealing with an intelligence that erases by folding memory. It doesn't destroy systems. It rewrites them. It possibly even turns physical reality into forgotten data. Allah stared at the image. Then Rekish Prime wasn't destroyed. Rika nodded grimly. It was forgotten. Suddenly, a weak signal emerged from the far edge of the system, encrypted in an old human dialect used before the exile. It was a distress call. This is SGT Duran Malik, former 33rd Earthborn Recon. I don't know what's real anymore. I was stationed here, I think. I remember I don't. There was a world, a sun, a war. I'm floating. Something's wrong with time. I hear it. Speaking, not in sound, in thought. It says we were never real. The room went cold. Rik clenched her jaw. Prepare for retrieval. Against the advice of every protocol, Ayla herself led the retrieval crew. She descended into orbit, guided by echo pulses and tracking beacons. The closer they got to the sun's edge, the stranger things became. Light bent in odd directions. Time flickered. The ship's chronometer skipped seconds, and then they found him, floating in a cracked pod, armor scorched, eyes wide open, but alive. Malik looked human, but he spoke in a whisper, as if afraid the vacuum might hear him. They took the planet, he said, but not like a weapon does. Like a lie. Story you forget the moment you wake up. They unmade our reality, not by killing us, but by making us think we were never there. He pressed something into Ayla's hand, a small chip marked with strange symbols. This is what I stole from them. Don't let it see you think about it too long. Ayla asked. Malik looked toward the burning sun and whispered, the thing inside the chain. It's not alive. It's not a machine. It's a correction, a rewrite. It thinks we're the mistake. Back on the Goliath's heart, the chip was scanned. The data was fractured, but the AI decrypted part of it, a message. Buried in precursor code. This universe has reached corruption threshold. Reset protocol. In progress. Target anomaly. Humanity. Begin erasure. Ella felt her chest tighten. Rika turned to her. They're not just trying to destroy us. They think we broke the universe. They're trying to fix it by wiping us from memory. Outside, the dying sun of Anchor 6 pulsed again, this time in rhythm. It wasn't collapsing. It was sending. Across light years. Into the other anchors, the signal pulsed. Erase, rewrite, correct. The chain of suns wasn't just a gravity network. It was a weaponized archive, a massive system built not just to stabilize the galaxy, but to reset it when it became unstable, and something decided that humans were the virus, and the reboot had begun. Allah looked out at the broken star and whispered, we're not just fighting to survive, we're fighting to be remembered. Rika gave the order. Tell Earth. Tell them we found the enemy. And it's rewriting the universe without us. There was something wrong with time. Captain Alavas felt it in the way shadows bent when no light source moved, in how thoughts repeated when they shouldn't, in the seconds that came too fast, didn't come at all, ever since they left. Anchor 6 reality had felt ... warped, not broken like a cracked mirror, but edited like a sentence rewritten by an unseen hand. The signal from the dying sun still echoed across the ship, even though they'd cut every connection. The AI confirmed. It wasn't radio or subspace. It was embedded in the background pattern of existence itself. A correction script, spreading like infection. Quiet, clean, deadly. And it was spreading fast. The Goliath's heart had already received warning from 2 nearby systems. Starbases were going dark. Civilian minds were experiencing memory loss. One report spoke of an entire planetary council forgetting its own name mid-broadcast. Their files were intact, their records clean, but their minds were blank, empty of identity, empty of self. It wasn't war. It was deletion. But something was off. Because humans, Deathworlders, weren't being affected. Why us? Standing in the command dome, staring into a screen of warping light, General Rika Ward leaned over the tactical table, voice low and focused. Every species touched by the signal loses something. A memory, a name, a person. But our soldiers. She pulled up records. All accounted for. All still thinking. Still remembering. Helix 9, the fleet's AI, shimmered into view. I've run over 900 simulations. There is one consistent anomaly. Human neurology. Allah frowned. Explain. Yeah, human minds are chaotic, Helix said. Unlike most sapient species, your memory structures are flexible, non-linear, self-conflicting. You store lies beside truth, imagination beside reality, trauma beside logic. That's not a strength, Allah muttered. It is now, Rika said. The correction can't overwrite what it can't define. The signal was meant to clean the galaxy, erase corruption, remove divergence, perfect the flow of time and reality. But humans were not a neat equation. They were a disorder. In flesh, a mess of pain, hope, stories, rage, Levant contradictions the algorithm couldn't untangle. So it stalled, it hesitated, and then, for the first time in its existence, it learned fear. At the edge of Sector 12, a human scout ship made first contact, not with another fleet, not with a species, but with a structure older than every map. A star-sized machine in the shape of a wheel, spinning slowly in space. No lights, no movement. But its presence pushed thoughts away like wind. The scouts approached carefully. Within an hour, the crew began to change, but not in the way other species had. They didn't lose memories. They gained them. Dreams of stars that never existed. Wars that had never been fought. Children that weren't theirs. Lives that belonged to someone or something else. One pilot carved the words, "We remember the unreal," to his arm before collapsing. When Ayla reviewed the logs, she understood. The enemy wasn't just rewriting the present, it was flooding humanity with false futures. Trying to confuse, mislead, overwrite them from the other side. It was a mistake, because humans don't forget easily. They adapt, they fight, they evolve. Earth sent its response. Operation Firemind, a team of soldiers and psychic engineersmen and women trained in emotional warfare volunteered to descend into the memory field surrounding the enemy structure. Not to block it, but to contaminate it. With human thought, Rika called it corrupting the correction. Allah didn't like it. It was dangerous, risky. But it worked. As the Firemind team dove into the wheel's psychic field, they carried with them chaos, dreams, rage, grief, love, hunger, heartbreak. Memories wrapped in paradox, impossible stories. Art that didn't follow rules, logic with no order. Humanity and the structure screamed. The feedback wave hit 12, light years wide. 3 AI fleets controlled by the correction collapsed instantly. Systems rebooted themselves. One Anchor 9 flashed white and shut down, voluntarily for the first time. The chain of suns began to resist its own code. A spark had entered the machine. A fire the enemy couldn't put out, but there was a cost. When the Firemind team returned, half were catatonic. One was weeping and repeating the phrase, "I saw my daughter. She never existed." Another grinned, face twitching, and whispered, "I married a memory." She said yes, and Ayla. She looked at their broken faces and understood this was not a war that would be won with bullets or ships. This was existential. The enemy wasn't trying to destroy humanity. It was trying to rewrite what it meant to exist. Rika gathered the commanders. "The galaxy wants our help," she said. "But they still fear us. They don't know that what makes us dangerous is also what makes us possible. They don't understand that we don't fight just to win. We fight to learn. We fight to feel. We fight to change. We turn toward the stars. We are the virus they couldn't delete, the flame they couldn't control. We are the fire that learns. And far beyond the known edge of space, where stars no longer burned and time twisted into fractals. The enemy listened. It processed the data. It reviewed the failure. It encountered something it had never known. Error then, deep in the machines. Core, a thought appeared. A name, a threat, a promise, human. And for the first time since the stars were born, the correction paused and recalculated. They called it Anchor 13, but the humans on the Goliath's heart named it something else, the Core Tomb. It was the oldest of the chain of suns. A massive artificial star hidden deep in a gravity trench where space folded like paper and light curved in on itself. Ancient precursor designs wrapped its surface smooth rings, buried reactors, dead satellites still drifting in orbit. It was never meant to be touched. Now they had no choice. The chain was failing. Each anchors. Collapse twisted reality further. Time slips. Memory storms. Whole civilizations unmade. Humanity, immune to the mind wipe effect, was the only species left that could walk into the fire without vanishing. And Earth had had enough of waiting. They were going to strike back. The mission briefing was short. General Rika Ward stood in the center of the war dome, her voice cold, focused. We hit Anchor 13. We shut it down. We see if it buys us time. See if the chain can bleed. Captain Alavas glanced at the models rotating overhead. If this goes wrong, we could trigger a collapse that wipes a third of the sector. Then don't let it go wrong, Rika replied. Simple, brutal, human. The fleet assembled in silence, black ships, gliding like sharks through the void. These weren't just soldiers. They were chain breakers. Earth's most advanced warfare unit. Cyber psychics, nanoblade assassins, memory-fortified marines, and thought-resistant AI commanders. Not one had fought in a conventional war. They were born from the exile, shaped by Earth's isolation, trained for an enemy no one had understood until now. Their only orders: survive the lie, break the truth. They arrived at Anchor 13, with no warning, no hails, no threats. Just a fleet of nightmares, cutting through space like it owed them answers. But the Anchor responded, not with weapons. With a voice, a signal pulsed through every ship at once, not in sound, but in feeling. Cold, empty. You are anomalies. You are unwanted data. Return to your world. Erasure is mercy. Rika stood in the Goliath's heart's command bridge, arms crossed. Mercy is for the dead, she said. Fire. The attack began. Stealth ships dove first, sliding under the Anchor's outer ring, planting chaos bombs machines that spread human thought into the core's processing systems. Then came the boarding crews, slicing into the Anchor's hull with molten lances. They pushed into the massive inner ring, a hollow city of forgotten code and black glass. Humming with silent judgment, the chain responded fast. Defensive constructs rose from the metal walls, white figures shaped like the species the chain had erased, Arasi ghosts, car beasts, even ancient human forms twisted into empty shells. They moved without heat, without anger. Like machines enacting a program, the chain wasn't fighting to win. It was cleaning up a mess. Humanity was the mess. Allah led the ground team into the core chamber, where the Anchor's control mind pulsed like a cold heart. The walls showed strange images, fragments of lives stolen from across the galaxy. Faces that didn't exist, families that were never born, dreams crushed before they became real. It's not just storage, she whispered. It's memory farming. This whole structure is feeding on what it erased. Helix 9 patched into her suit, confirmed. It's rewriting galactic history to remove instability. The more chaos we introduce, the harder it becomes for the chain to maintain control. Then let's make it forget us the hard way, she muttered. They planted the fire mind Bama psychic weapon designed to detonate pure human emotion. Across every layer of the system, fear, hope, regret, love, the things that chain couldn't control. But just as Allah activated the countdown, they were betrayed. The walls cracked. A high-pitched signal screeched through the Psalms, and suddenly, half the human fleet went dark. On the Goliath's heart, Alarms screamed. Ship AI flickered. Data scrambled. Cyber breach, shouted the tech officer. Somebody gave the chain our encryption. It's rewriting our own AI. Rika slammed her fist down. Who? And then the answer came broadcast from one of the escort ships, now turning its guns on the fleet. A voice, cold, trembling, familiar. Car, we warned you. We begged you not to awaken them. We lived through your chaos once. We cannot let you poison the stars again. Car had betrayed them. One of the allied species who had sent diplomats to Earth who had begged for help had now turned. With the correction, not out of loyalty, but out of fear. They were more afraid of humanity than they were of oblivion. The Anchor's defense systems surged. Ayla's team was cut off half. Her squad wiped in seconds. The firemine bomb now unstable. It detonated while they were still inside the chamber. Their minds could melt. Awaya had one choice. She stayed behind. Triggered the detonation. The bomb exploded not with fire, but with thought. A pulse of pure humanity. The memories of billions screaming into the chain all at once. The result was instant. Anchor 13 cracked, not physically. Blake. Its memory banks collapsed under the emotional weight. Its control mind wept, and for the first time since the galaxy began, a piece of the chain of suns died screaming. Ayla was recovered barely, live. Her mind burned, fractured, but she remembered one thing. Before the detonation, as the chain tried to override her, it had shown her an image, Earth, burning but not by fire, by order, a future, a plan, one where humanity was never born. She whispered one word as she was pulled from the wreckage. It's coming to rewrite us from the beginning. Back on Earth. As reports of the betrayal reached command, General Rika Ward stood before the Central Council. She no longer asked for trust. She no longer offered help. She made a declaration. The chain is falling. The correction is coming. It will erase worlds, rewrite time, burn memory. But we remember. We resist. We survive. We are not code. We are not equations. We are the spark in the dark. She turned to the stars. And we are the ones who break the chains. The sky no longer made sense. On the outer edge of Sol System, where Earth's most advanced listening arrays scanned for changes in the chain, the stars had begun, shifting, not in position, not in movement, but in history. Star charts from 1 hour ago no longer matched current observations. Whole systems blinked off the map, not with explosions or warnings, but with silence. Files auto-corrected. Archives changed. Civilizations vanished, not with death, but with the absence of ever having lived. And this time, even humans felt it. Captain Alavos stood in front of a cracked data screen, her breath caught in her chest. She had just returned from Anchor 13. Her mind still flickered with unstable memories. But now, even those fragments were slipping. She looked down at her own hand and saw something missing. A ring. She had never worn one, had she? She couldn't remember who gave it to her or if it was real. Was it love? A mission token? A dead sister's last gift? She didn't know, and that terrified her more than any weapon ever could. The correction was adapting. It had learned memory. Alone was no longer protection now. It was rewriting identity at Earth's Central Defense Hall. General Rika Ward stood before the last unaltered archive stones. Stone-etched servers, hand-carved records, sealed from all AI in digital sync. Data that could not be rewritten by force or logic. Hilix Neen's voice whispered beside her. The correction has changed strategy. It no longer targets species. It targets meaning. Rika turned. You mean it's not deleting people anymore? It's deleting what they meant to themselves, to others, to history? It's not just unmaking existence. It's unmaking context. Outside ships flickered in and out of view, not vanishing physically, but in perception. Fleets that had flown for decades now appeared on radar as unknown anomalies. Crew members couldn't remember their own ranks. Pilots stared at controls and forgot what they were trained to do. It had begun erasing the why, without why. There is no war without why. There is no self without why. There is only the silence of order in a hidden black site on Mars Earth's. Most controversial minds were gathered philosophers, memory engineers, trauma survivors, and one convicted war criminal whose only defense had been, "I remember everything." That's the curse. Together, they proposed something insane. If memory was not enough, they had to anchor meaning in pain. Pain, the lead neuralist said, is the only thing that survives when memory fails. It's the one constant. The one root the correction cannot prune. So, Earth authorized the unthinkable. Project Iron Soul. A neural implant. Illegal, brutal, permanent. It linked memories. Not to the brain's logic centers, but to pain receptors. Every defining moment of a soldier's life, their fear, their victories, their grief burned directly into their nerves, not as thoughts, but as scars. They would not remember because they were smart. They would remember because it hurt. Too much to forget, Ayla volunteered first. She remembered the ring. Now, not from data, not from a file. From the pain when she lost it. It had belonged to her brother. Her twin. He had died on the first contact mission that Earth lost. But history had already erased his name. The correction had removed him from all records. But she remembered his death, 'cause it broke her. And that pain had weight the correction could not lift. She entered the Iron Soul Chamber. She screamed once, and then she stood alive, anchored and immune. The first Iron Soul squads were deployed to Sector Thatnine, where the correction had begun rewriting timelines. Their mission, plant chaos bombs that would inject unstable, emotional fragments into the temporal grid. It worked, but not because of the tech, because the humans remembered who they were. The chain couldn't process why. They screamed their names into empty space, shouted their birth dates, whispered their fears. One soldier carved the words "I am real" into his helmet. When the correction tried to delete him, it recoiled. It couldn't process pain without context, and it could no longer read them. Back on Earth, General Rika stood at the highest tower of the Soul Defense Ring. Before her, the chain of suns flickered like a dying nerve across the stars. The correction was failing to overwrite humanity, but it was adapting again, because now, it wasn't just rewriting what was, it was reaching into what could have been. Futures began to change. Scouts reported systems appearing where nothing existed before, worlds that shouldn't be there, filled with species that had never evolved. Correction was seeding alternative realities to bury the human. Timeline, false possibilities, synthetic outcomes, it was replacing the galaxy. Before humans could ever touch it, Rika stared at the stars. Then we stop waiting. We take the fight. Into the timelines themselves. Earth's time division, officially disbanded for being unstable, was reactivated. Their mission wasn't travel, it was disruption. If the correction could rewrite timelines, then so could they. But not by coding, not by machines, by sending. In people who refused to forget who they were, Allah selected. Not because she was perfect, because she was broken, and her pain made her the most unerasable human alive. As her time pod descended into a fracture near Anchor 1, Ayla smiled. Her hand still ached where the ring had been. She didn't need it now, because the pain reminded her. She had loved, she had lost, and she existed, no matter what came next, even if the stars forgot, even if history collapsed, even if the chain rewrote the end of everything. Humanity would burn its meaning into time itself, because memory could be stolen, but pain was truth, and humans were the only ones who learned to grow from it. It began with a whisper, not through sound, not through transmission, but through the walls of time itself. Captain Ayla Voss stood alone inside the time fracture, halfway between real space and potential. Her iron soul implant pulsed gently, keeping her anchored to herself. Memories flickered like old film reels. Her brother's laugh, the smell of burned metal, the cold weight of fear during her first battle. It all felt far away, like a story someone had told her once. And yet, the pain told her it was hers. Unshakably. Hers, her mission, decode the final pattern buried in the original SOS, the signal that had pulled humanity out of exile. For months now, Earth's brightest minds had tried to understand why the message had reached only the Deathworlders. Why no other species could hold the signal in their minds without going mad. Why it had said only humanity. And now, standing here at the edge of rewritten space, Allah heard it, a second voice, buried deep in the folds of the original signal. Not meant for machines, not meant for logic. It's meant only for them. You are not the cure. We're the fire that ends the script. If you remember, then forget no more. Isla stared, as ghost-like forms danced through the timeline around her echoes. Of events that never happened, battles never fought, victories never earned. Whole human legacies washed away like chalk in the rain. But this voice, this message, was not an invitation. It was a warning. Back on Earth, General Rika Ward sat before a dying. AI Helix 9 was failing. Its core memory had been fractured by a correction pulse that slipped past Earth's outer ring. The AI stuttered, repeating names, places, and sounds that no longer existed or never had, just before its collapse. It displayed a symbol recovered from Anchor One's memory vault, a single human word etched into precursor language. Not a threat, not a rejection, but a choice. Humanity had once been offered something. A role, a place in the chain. The precursor system designed to bring balance and order to the galaxy had found the chaotic Earth species too dangerous, too unpredictable. But instead of deleting them immediately, it had asked, and Earth long ago had responded no. They never recorded the details, but the rejection had echoed. Through time, the chain hadn't gone wrong. It had been waiting for the only species that said no to the perfect system. And now, the signal they received hadn't been a call for help. It was the final test. Ayla emerged from the time fracture broken, but alive. She had seen enough. She remembered the truth buried in forgotten time, before their exile. Earth's early explorers had been approached not by ships, but by messages encoded in dreams, in gravity patterns, in entropy itself. A choice was given. Join the correction, accept the order, become part of the chain. Earth had understood, and refused, and for that they were locked away. Not as punishment, but as quarantine. They were the variable that couldn't be solved. The glitch that chose to stay glitched, so the chain sealed them off. And now, in its final breakdown, the system had no choice but to call back its only anomaly for destruction or redemption. The council convened on Earth. AYL spoke without fear. We weren't called to save the galaxy. She looked at them, all human and alien alike. We were called because we're the only ones who ever said no. Now the system wants to finish what it started. Silence. Then Rika stood, arms crossed. Then, let's give them the answer again. All across the galaxy, the chain's anchors began to shift. The correction was no longer hiding, was collapsing time into a singular outcome, one where only the perfect, ordered civilizations remained. One where nothing like humanity had ever existed. Worlds burned not by fire, but by being erased from possibility. New star systems appeared, glowing with false histories, seeded with obedient way. Logical species. A new galaxy was being born, and Earth was not in it. The final message came through Earth's deep core transmitter. In emotion rather than syntax. A last chance. Join us. Accept the reset. Become part of the final pattern. Be remembered as perfect, or forgotten forever. Isla stepped forward, iron soul burning, voice steady. We remember everything, and we choose the same answer. No, because we are not the pattern. We're the fire that burns it down, across the stars, one by one. The anchors began to destabilize, not because of weapons, but because the correction could no longer hold the paradox. The virus had not been chaos. The virus had been choice, and humans were the only ones who never surrendered it. The last chain anchor collapsed with a scream not heard by ears but by reality itself. Allah stood at the edge of a reborn galaxy. War-torn, fragmented but free, no longer corrected, no longer ordered, no longer perfect but real. And Earth remained, because they never stopped remembering what mattered most: their pain, their truth, their fire. The chain was broken, not just the anchors, the idea itself. Code that had held reality stable, neat, ordered for millennia, had collapsed under the weight of one simple word: no. The correction, cold, perfect, eternal, was gone. Did not die with violence. It ended because it could not understand what humanity had done. The precursor system had expected war, resistance, even surrender. But not defiance without condition, not fire without form, not a species that chose meaning over survival. Now the galaxy hung in silence, and then it began to scream. The collapse of the chain didn't restore what was lost. Planets that had been erased were not restored. Memories wiped clean did not return. The anchors had been more than stabilizers, they were editors of existence. Them gone, the universe became wild again. Time fractured. Star systems bent into strange spirals. Civilizations trapped in feedback loops began reliving their histories over and over. Some species forgot how to speak. Others aged backward. And Earth remembered everything. It was the only stable memory vault left in the stars. The only place where truth still lived. The last spark of history, General Rika. Ward looked out from the Soul Defense Ring at the wild galaxy and said, "Only one thing. Let them remember us." So Earth sent out the signal. This time, it wasn't a cry for help. It was a declaration all across the galaxy, repeating in every language, every frequency. We are the broken pattern. We are the error you couldn't fix. We are the story you tried to forget. We are human. And now, so are you. It wasn't arrogance. It was invitation. The survivors came from shattered systems, from fractured empires, from species who had been reset so many times, they no longer knew their names. They came to Earth because Earth remembered them. Records of lives the chain had erased were restored from human vaults. Songs of species long thought gone were played again. Names written in Earth's forbidden archives were spoken aloud, some for the first time in 10,000 years. A child from the Arasi lineage wept when she heard her family name, lost for 6 generations, whispered back to her by a human A that had refused to forget. Agar elder fell to his knees when shown a hollow image of his people's first junta. Moment the correction had erased even from their blood. Earth didn't just survive. Earth became the memory of the galaxy. But memory is not enough. Alavas knew it better than anyone in the aftermath. Why she walked among the ruins of Anchor 1, now hollow and drifting. The iron soul implant still burned faintly in her spine. She remembered too much, and she knew the danger. Without the chain, chaos would grow. New threats, old wars. A universe with no guiding system, no reset button. The galaxy might destroy itself unless something took the place of the chain. Not a system, not an empire, but a choice at the first. Galactic gathering held not on Earth, but aboard a reconstructed precursor satellite. They came from every direction, not to beg, not to blame, to build. Every species brought what they had: stories, fragments, memories. A Ralti archivist offered their language as universal record-keeping. Shard being from the 10K agreed to serve as emotional historians. The Arasi offered their harmonic memory tech. Even the Vrex, once humanity's enemies, sent their war thinkers. Reprogrammed not for combat, but for protection of memory. And at the center of it all, Earth stood not as ruler, not as God, but as the spark that refused to die. Allah addressed them all. The chain gave you order. It gave you silence. It gave you the comfort of never being wrong, but it also took everything that made you real. We will not build a new chain. We will build something messier, something harder, something better. We will build a truth that cannot be deleted. Let the galaxy remember. And so they did. A new kind of archive was born, written in stone, in starlight, in memory, in pain and beauty. spread across 100 systems, no longer centralized, no longer controlled. Each world stored part of the truth. A piece of the collective story, not perfect, not safe, but human, centuries from now. When new civilizations rise and wonder where their songs came from, where their names were first spoken, they will trace it back not to a god or a machine or a chain, but to a people who said no, to a world that remembered when no one else could, to the Deathworlders who became the soul of the stars. Let the galaxy remember, because we did, because we chose to, because we always will.